My name is Mr. Ostrasser, and for today's Sports Performance 35 lesson, we're going to be learning the proper form and techniques to perform a back squat and a deadlift. So here we go. When performing a back squat, a few of the most important things to remember are that we keep a neutral spine. That means that we have this nice flat line on our spine. It also means that our head is not looking up or down, we are looking straight ahead of us. Another key concept is that our knees are over our toes, and it's a pretty good alignment. We don't want our knees to be too far behind our toes or our knees to be too far ahead of our toes. Another thing to focus on is that our butt is at 90 degrees or lower. To achieve the full range of motion in the squat for all benefits, we definitely want to be at 90 degrees or lower. And one of the last things to focus on is that our feet are flat on the ground. We don't want to have our heels coming up, and we don't want to have the sides of our feet coming up. We want to be nice and flat, feeling the ground with our feet. From this angle, there are another couple cues to remember. One of the first ones is that our feet are just about shoulder width apart. Another thing we can remember is that we can have our feet pointed straight forward or just ever so slightly at an angle. Having your feet pointed at an angle actually engages the gluteus medius muscles, which are right here below your major glute muscles. Another cue is to pull the bar apart with your hands. By doing this, we are engaging all of these upper back muscles. To recap our back squat cues, we want to make sure we have our feet flat on the ground, the hands pulling the bar apart so that we engage our upper back muscles, our feet shoulder width apart, either facing forward or slightly at an angle. We want to have a neutral spine, which means a flat back, and your head facing straight forward, so we're not kinking the head up or down. We'd like to have our knees over our toes, not too far ahead, not too far behind, and our butt at 90 degrees or lower to maximize the full range of motion of the exercise. For the second part of this video, we're going to work on the perfect deadlift technique. Now before we do this, because you are all Sports Performance 35 students, we've all seen a deadlift. So what I want you to do is to take a minute and visualize the perfect deadlift. What do you see? What are the physical cues that you think of? Take a minute and write down three cues that you have when you visualize a perfect deadlift. Once we're done this lesson, we'll come back and you can double check and see if your visualization matches what we learned here today. Here we go. When performing a deadlift, much like a back squat, one of the major cues is to focus on having a neutral spine. That means we have a nice flat back, our head is not tilted up or down, but we're looking straight ahead. Another cue that's important for the deadlift is that the first movement is pushing into the ground with our legs. So we're putting our force into the ground. One common mistake with the deadlift is instead of pushing into the ground with our legs, we're lifting with our back to start with, and that can cause a lot of stress on the lower back and can cause injury. The last couple of cues when performing the deadlift are that we keep our feet just about shoulder width apart, much like performing the squat. Our feet can be facing straight forward or slightly at an angle, also like performing the squat, and that our hands are just about outside of our knees on the bar. All right, so to recap our deadlift, the cues that we learned today were that we like to keep a neutral spine. That means our head looking forward, not looking down, not looking up. Our back is nice and straight. The movement begins with the legs, so we make sure that we're pushing all of our force into the ground, not trying to lift from the back. Doing that is a common mistake, and it can cause a lot of stress on the lower back, and potentially it can be a risk of injury. The next cue is that our feet are shoulder width apart, and they can be facing forward or just slightly at an angle. The next cue is that our hands are just slightly outside of our knees, and that's a deadlift. Now, thinking back to the beginning of this portion of the lesson, when you visualized your perfect deadlift and you wrote down 3 cues, do any of the cues that you wrote down match the ones that we learned today? And if so, good for you. And if not, I'm glad that we had the opportunity to go over this and learn something today. So thanks for watching.